Welcome to Dateline Health. My name is Fred Lippman, and we come to you from NOVA, Southeastern University, and the Allen B. Levan Innovation Center, which is a combined effort between NSU and Broward County. Today we have a very interesting and a very important subject matter because there's been so much interest from you, the viewers. Don't forget, these programs, which we're doing now for nearly 25 years, the interest of your comments come to me, and then we try to find people to give you your answers. There's such a growth in the elderly community in the state of Florida. Now that we're probably #1 in elderly, I'll let our guests tell us. But let me introduce to you Stephanie Zeverino, and she's an advocate and placement agent for Elder Care Solutions. So welcome, Ms. Zeverino. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Tell us about what your company or your entity does.
Well, Zeverino Elder Care Solutions is, as you mentioned, a placement agency. And I help families, mostly the adult children, who are looking to find the best option, living option for their loved ones. And it's typically mom and dad or mom or dad. And it's a very interesting industry, and there's a lot to navigate. And I walk them through the whole process and identify exactly what they need. And we, it's really when they no longer feel like they can safely live at home. So that's what I do. I determine and find the right housing solution for them.
You know, as I was saying, people don't really recognize, we're so caught up in watching television and listening to various news and information networks that we've lost our daily interests. I wouldn't say everybody does, but many of us lose their daily interests in reading newspapers, for example. Less than 20%, 21% of the communities in South Florida read a newspaper now. But the reason I bring that up is because that's where the information usually came from. People like yourself are necessary because being a resident of the state of Florida and being someone who had the opportunity to serve these people who are viewing us in multiple different ways, both in an elective and appointive, and now in the educational leadership, which we have, which I've been able to share at Nova Southeastern University. There are so many questions because everybody thinks, well, these places that house the elderly are just for people who have, Alzheimer's disease, or they're confused or whatever, but that's not really true. So talk to us about the width of your placement agency and tell us what they do.
Yeah, well, that is, the perception is it's the old folks' home, and I'm not going there. That's what everyone feels and says typically. And what the generation that we're serving now in the senior housing industry doesn't realize that there's so much more that has evolved with their housing options. You've got independent living for those who just feel like they want to be in a more social setting and really want to engage and be around people, and they no longer want to live alone at home. Maybe their spouse passed away and they've been in the house for many years, and the kids are saying, Mom, it's time to move out and go into a community and enjoy it. And those are the people that really need no help at all. And maybe they're lonely and isolated, which can actually lead towards memory loss if you're not social. So there's that independent living for those who need no care but want more of that social setting. Then within the confines of independent living, most providers have assisted living. And those are people who need a little bit of assistance. Not some need more, some need less, but they have that oversight and that care within the same environment. And then you have memory care for those that are diagnosed with Alzheimer's or some form of dementia. And so you've got standalone Alzheimer's buildings, and then you have providers that have all three levels. So you can transition and age in place. So you never have to really leave. You can add on care as you need it, as you age in place is what we call it. So those are your three options. And they've become, Dr. Lippman, they look like hotels. I mean, they're stunning, stunning. They're not the old folks home that the generation that we're serving now remembers when they were little and putting their grandparents in. It's not that way anymore. They're like, I call them stationary cruise ships. So I always ask the older adult that I'm trying to find a location for, have you ever been on a cruise? And they'll go, oh yes, honey, I love cruises. It's fabulous. You've got everything there. You go to your cabin. Well, that's exactly what senior living is. They're beautifully done. You've got your meals, you've got housekeeping, you have programs of engagement, you have entertainment, and you have camaraderie and socialization.
You know, we've gone through a period of time. I'm going to take you back to the late 1960s, 70s, when we started to build out dominantly in South Florida and really dominantly in North Dade County and all good portions of Broward County, and now it's gone all the way up the road, all the way up to Orlando, when you really think of it. When originally people who retired at age 65 plus, 70, 75, they were coming here and buying condominiums, you know, because they were very agreeable relative to their financial capabilities to be able to buy these entities. And in essence, they were the first multi-faceted, shall we say, entities where people had activities, they went to shows and movies, and they had picnics and things of that nature. They had involvement with religious facilities. And, I mean, it really was different. Now we start to move on, and we become now the second largest state by population in the United States. And there's still a dramatic number of people over the age of 70 that come to live in the state of Florida. So I would assume you really have a very vibrant, open marketplace to make people aware of the fact that these are not the nursing homes. I'm not knocking them, but these are not the nursing homes of the past. These are different. Just so when you say the element of your referral, I would assume, relates to not making a healthcare decision, but making a helpful decision.
That's right. No, that's right. And, going back to what you just said, back then in the 60s and 70s, what was popular, and you probably remember this, is the 55 plus communities. That's what they were called. You had, you moved into a single family home or a townhome, and it was called 55 plus, and it was on a golf course. It had tennis, and it had a clubhouse, but there was no oversight of care. And so people would have to scramble and try to figure out what they wanted to do if they wanted to remain in their home, and they'd have to bring private duty agencies in, caregivers in. And that's getting a little challenging as well, because it's like managing your own company when you bring in private duty agencies, although there's fabulous ones. But we've moved on from what you said, the nursing home environment. The senior living industry, as you can imagine, has evolved, as I said, but it's private pay. So you have an issue with, can people afford to move into something like this, because Medicare doesn't cover it, insurance doesn't cover it. It's all out of pocket. You have to have the assets to withstand living there for the rest of your life. So the population we're serving right now in the model of care is people in their 80s, and it's a month-to-month environment, but they still have to have 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 a month, depending on what their care levels are, to be able to afford it. Then you have the state that's come in and offered a Medicaid waiver program for those that have a certain lower income to help subsidize and offset the cost of living in a community. So they do give them a monthly allocation for their room and board, but those, not every place takes it. Most of these communities are private pay only. So you have to talk, I have to educate them on the financial aspect as well. How much assets and how is your mom or dad? Because I'm like I said, I'm always dealing with the adult child. What resources, financial resources, do your parents have, or mom or dad, to be able to sustain living there? If they live to 90, they're going to be there for 10 years. So it's usually the sale of their home that they bought, like you were just saying, in the 60s, 70s. It's now what, they bought it for 30,000. It's now worth 750, hopefully more.
That's a very good point, because actually one of the questions that came to us was, how, if I intend to be, I'm 78 years old, not me, Fred Littman, but the person who wrote to us and said, well, in my family, we have people that have lived into their 90s. How do I prepare for that? And I know you're not an accountant and you're not a fiscal advisor, but I would assume that you have these actions and connectivities with individuals that when you offer advice, to have them communicate with individuals that could probably help them through with their fiscal matters. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I'm connected in every aspect of making this decision with financial advisors, with long-term care insurance folks, with taking a life insurance policy and converting it to cash to use to move into a community if they want to stay home a little longer. I'm connected with private duty agencies that can come in temporarily until we find the right place. Everybody, even what's called move managers. These are folks that come in and they'll literally go to the family's home and go to the community that they chose and look at the square footage of the room, and then go back to the house and let mom or dad know that these things are not going to fit. Here's what's going to fit. And they design and set up the apartment that they're moving into with the items that they already have. So yeah, I'm very connected in Broward County, Palm Beach, and Miami-Dade. It's that we're all out there. This is the group of folks that I market with every day that are here to care for the senior population in every aspect of making decisions like this. So financial advisors are very important, but we talk about folks like me in at my age really need to look at getting long-term care insurance. That's what you need. That's the only insurance that will pay for living in a month-to-month community, is long-term care insurance. So that the adult children, it's always an eye-opener, Dr. Littman. They're like, oh my gosh, how much does this cost? How am I going to afford this when I'm in my 80s? Well, you should start thinking about getting a long-term care policy. Right now, that's all these communities will take. Everything else is out of pocket.
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up, because we had an inquiry from one of the viewers about long-term care insurance, because they were obviously aware of it because their mom and dad, or one of them, had long-term care insurance, and the costs have gone up dramatically relative to the purchase of long-term care insurance. But you have to, again, we need professionals like yourself who are offering advice or relating that interest, to ask them to talk to their fiscal managers and people like that, because that's not the only answer. My question, though, also comes to me with another question that came from a viewer, and that is that when you move into some of these very well-known ALFs, adult living facilities, is there any title to the actual apartment, or is it a contractual relationship that goes on forever? For example, if a husband and wife, God bless them, are moving in together as a unit and one of them passes on, what is your communication to these people if they ask the question that I just brought to your attention?
Yeah. Well, that is a really excellent question, because what folks may not know is that there are two financial models to senior living. There is the one that I represent is a month-to-month obligation. So it's a lease that they sign. It's a residential agreement that they sign that allows them to leave or vacate for whatever reason, or even downgrade if should one of the spouses pass away and they're in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and they want to downgrade. Maybe he passed away and she's in this big apartment and wants to go into a smaller apartment within the same building, but it's month to month. So the consumer, the person moving in, has a 30-day out clause. All they have to do is give a written notice that they want to leave. Maybe the adult children decided to leave Florida and go somewhere else, and they want to take mom with them. Whatever the situation is, you can get out within 30 days. So that's the financial model, which is the ALF model that is the month to month. So you can get out. Now, you do sign a resident agreement, and what that agreement tells everyone is that what your rights are as a resident to live there, some of the policies and procedures, what the care costs are, and it locks in your monthly fee for 12 months. So you have to allocate that at the end of 12 months, just like renting an apartment, because that's what you're doing. You're renting. Your month to month, or your monthly fee is going to go up. Used to be 3 to 5%. Now with inflation, it's running 6 to 9%. So if you're paying $4,000 a month at the end of your 12 months, that's going to go up about anywhere between 5 and 9%. So you have to accommodate and allocate for that. That's one financial model. Then the second one is what's called a life care plan model. It's a buy-in where you're not buying the condo, but you're buying a life care plan. And there are some of those that are around. I don't represent those, but I do understand the difference. And you go in and you purchase, well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say purchase, but you're buying a life care plan. So let's say it's $400,000 or $500,000 for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo in a high rise in a life care plan community. What that is giving you, that $500,000, is it will allow you to age in place and have and know that you have care all the way through to end of life. Some of them have an out clause after, if you're within 4 years of giving them that $500,000, within 4 years, if you want to move out, you do get some of that money back. But most communities, after a certain amount of time, your estate doesn't get any of that money. So it allows you to move to assisted living, guaranteed, with no extra cost. And then it allows you to move to memory care also at no extra cost, because you've already put that money up front. And it's a campus. It's all on one, it's a campus environment. So it's different buildings, but you have to go into those places typically when you have no health issues. So if it's a couple, you have to go in. Most of those kinds of communities are appealing to the folks in their late 60s, early 70s. They go in, it's a couple going in, they're healthy, and then they want to buy this sort of insurance, knowing that they are going to be able to stay there for the rest of their life. So that's another financial model. It's not one I represent.
No, so, but if the individual that is sitting in front of you, you receive information which takes them out of your venue, what do you then do?
Well, I do know all of the communities, and there's not very many of them that do offer that type of life care plan. And I recommend them, and I'm in contact with most of the marketing and sales folks there, and I put them in touch. I do a warm introduction. and let them know that my client has decided that they would prefer a life care plan rather than go into a month to month.
So what I am hearing from you, and I don't know what the answer is, so that's why I'm asking you. There are people that have asked the question, do I have a lien ownership to the venue, or is it limited relative to their life expectancy?
Yeah, that's my understanding. It's not like they don't own the property, if that's the question you're asking. That's not there's no ownership involved. They're just paying to, like I said, what they call a life care plan, to just live there throughout the rest of their life.
So it's a contract agreement that allows them to live there for their lifelong period of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess that's the answer to the question.
And usually, if I'm dealing with, it depends on their age. If they're in their 70s, they may not want to go into a senior living community just yet because most of the folks living there are in their 80s, and they may not feel that that's the appropriate situation for them right now. But most of my clients are in their 80s or even 90s, and it's no longer safe for them to live at home. So they really need to look at the oversight of a community, because you've got nursing on site. You have the call button, the emergency pull cord button should you not feel well. You've got a lot of protection that you don't typically have in a home. And then again, I go back to cognitive issues, and cognitive well-being is being in a social stimulating environment where you're around other people. There's so many studies that talk about that being isolated at home. You might have a caregiver or a private duty person caring for you at home, but are they cognitively stimulating you? Yes, they're there. They make sure that you're showered, you're fed, that you're taken care of, and you've been driven to the doctor's office. But there's no in-home cognitive type stimulation. They're usually sitting in their recliner watching TV. We're in a community setting. You've got so many options. You can do as much as you want or as little as you want. And they don't want you in your room. They really want you out engaged, meeting other residents and getting on committees and continuing. It's not end of life. It's continuing to live your life as best as you can with whatever the circumstances are.
In viewing, I'm still a newspaper reader, so I mean I read the Sun Sentinel.
Yeah, I was going to say the Sun Sentinel.
So I also still read the Miami Herald, but the ads in their newspapers talk often of facilities that I would assume that you recommend or communicate with, and some of them are really very attractive. Let's put it that way. When I say attractive, I don't only mean from an architectural point of view, but they're very attractive relative to the opportunities that the elder might receive. So that's what you present. Is that correct?
Correct. That's how I present it, and it's true. I mean, you get everything is included. If some folks are still have a mortgage and they took out a second mortgage and they're still paying on a second mortgage, plus they have the overhead and the upkeep of the lawn, of the roof, of any issues that go on within the home. When you take the cost of all of that against a $4,000 or $5,000 a month rental in a community, most of that stuff is included. You don't have no more maintenance, no more mowing the lawn. You've got a maintenance person on site. If your dishwasher is having problems or any appliances, everything is covered. Housekeeping is covered. Laundry services are covered. 3 meals a day are covered in a beautiful dining room. You have activities, you have outings, you can transportation, all of that's included. So if you break down the cost of all of that to do that independently on your own in your own home, it actually can be cost effective or comparable to moving into a community and having all of that included in your monthly fee. Where it gets expensive, Dr. Lippman, is when you need care, when you have a lot of physical limitations and cognitive limitations. That's when it gets expensive. because you have to add on the care cost too, because if you need medication management oversight, you can't administer your meds on your own, then that's, those things need to be covered, and there's a cost associated with that.
The important thing is for people to understand that healthcare has changed dramatically relative to screening and prevention and things of that nature. So the issues of living longer is something that you need experts or accepted value experts like yourself to offer them the opportunities to know these are the products that are available, these are the ventures that are available. You make the decision, I will help you get there, and hopefully you live a happy life to your end. Is that where we're at?
That's where we're at. That's where we're at. Absolutely. Yep.
I appreciate you showing up today and being with us, and I'm sure that the people out there are going to be thinking about what you said. Folks, I always tell you at the end of the broadcast, it's most important for you to make sure that you stay in touch with your physicians, that you get your annual checkups, the various male and female screenings that have to be dealt with. If you want to live beyond the time that you said that you thought you were going to live, it's no longer the 1930s, 40s, and 50s where people said at age 65, that's the end of my work life, and I don't know how much longer I'm going to live. You're living much longer. Take the opportunity. Just don't walk into a pharmacy. That was my first profession. Or walk into a supermarket and pick something off the shelves. If something is bothering you, speak to your physicians. They're there. They're the experts. And then revert that knowledge to individuals like Ms. Zeverino, not relative to your health care, but to the needs to keep your health care, shall we say, stable. That's the most important thing. So I wish you all a good day, and remember this show is called Dateline Health. We come to you from Nova Southeastern University. My name is Fred Lippman. Remember there's an email address and number here if you need to call us just for information. And once again, till next time, see you.